I was hoping that John Cummings would show up because he was on the team that first came in to open up the camp. Was there anybody that's here already who was that early when they just opened up Tong?
Well, in the meeting now.
Yes, sir. Bernard here.
Bernard, how you made it. Finally, you made it. Very good. We couldn't get him on the internet, but he's there on the phone. He can hear you and talk to you. So I will.
Hello.
Yeah, it's working.
Very good.
All right, let me just give you a little bit of background information to start this off. According to A Company history that was done in 1971, the Tong was founded on 11 March of 67. The U.S. Infantry Division assisted locating the camp as part of Operation Junction City. It was on astride infiltration routes and guarding a bridge. But it seemed to have attracted some attention because by August 7th of 1967, the 165th NVA Regiment was put it under siege. And at that point, we'll leave it on to you to try to build a chronological history. So who comes next or first in the historical line? We're talking anybody here from 67?
The Sam Seaton.
Sam.
I got there in March of 67. Frederico Ritchie was the camp commander. I replaced McMillian, who was kidnapped by the CIDG because the LLDB didn't pay the bill or stole her money. And I was there through August of 67. I was there during the big battle of August 7th. Captain Berg replaced Ritchie, who went to the Mobile Guerrilla Force. A few people I remember are Morganfield, who was our medic. Jerry Friend was a commo guy. I served with him in 7th Special Forces when I was enlisted. I was the XO of the team. Geist, who was a Spec 4, came over from Dog, was MIA over Minton. We talked about that already. So that's me. Anybody remember me? Were you there after I was, or were you there? Anybody there during the big battle of 7?
What happened during that battle? I see that Earl Berg got a Bronze Star with V and was wounded in that. I'm not seeing any other notes. Sam, did you leave before or after the battle?
Are you talking about me?
Yeah.
I was there during the battle. I left after the battle.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that. I see Berg has got a Bronze Star with V and a Purple Heart from that. And I'm not seeing any other awards from that time.
Well, Sergeant Flaherty, who was from the Mike Force, I wrote him up for a Silver Star and he got it.
Okay, so what was the Mike Force doing there? They just in support?
They reinforced us after the Mad Minute and the LLDB took off, ripped off the CIDG again, and they, under a Mad Minute, they deserted, and we brought in some replacements just prior to 7th August, replacement from Minton and the Mike Force. And we had several Mike Force people there. Had Lieutenant Moore, who was a blackjack. He was promoted from the ranks. We had Flaherty and some other guys from the Mike Force. I think they were from a 301 Mike Force, but I'm not sure. But during the battle, which started about midnight on the 7th of August, I heard some rounds go off like that. And I was in the Connex container away from the TOC because they separated the commander and the XO in case there was a battle and one side got taken out. So I was there sleeping next to a generator that was running, and I noted that that was incoming. I was able to discriminate between the H and I and incoming. And I immediately jumped, put my LBE on and ran out of the Connex container and jumped on the radio. And at that time, the mortar round hit and blew the fuel dump up open, and it went straight up. The top got smoked out. Captain Berg and Jerry Friend probably in there, and they couldn't see squat. So I grabbed the radio and I started talking to the FAC, and then another round hit the 4.2 mortar pit, which I sent you a note on, Sherman, about how Abrams caused that to happen. Did you get that, Steve? Oh, you're on the phone. Anyhow, a sniper, a Chi-Com team came across the wire, cut through the wire with C4, Chinese C4, and penetrated the mortar pit that we set up because General Abrams had just been there and chewed my butt, but we hadn't set it up yet. And it blunted the attack of the NVA through the Minton sector and must have killed well over 100 of their own. At that time, I grabbed my guys, went and found the camp commander hiding under his bed, and we went out and counterattacked. One NVA that made it into our inner berm, which was laterite, made a laterite. I went over to took his AK-47 away from him, and he threw a grenade at me. And Florida said, "Watch out, sir." He threw a grenade and he grabbed me. We both jumped behind some sandbags, and we jumped up after it blew. And we jumped up and must have put 100 rounds in that NVA. But anyhow, the counterattack went on, and we were able to call in the first infantry division, guns, gunships, to talk to the FAC, and he brought in F-101, F-100 fighters from 14th Squadron, led by Lieutenant Colonel Miles, who went on to become a general. He got a Silver Star for dumping loads and loads and rearming, going back and pounding the crap out of the NVA. It turned out there were 2 regiments, not just 165th. There were 2, about 4,000. And he blew them off the walls and puffed the magic dragon. Spooky went around the camp and just chewed hell out of the NVA. Anyhow, we made it through the night. Next morning I woke up, we still had about 40 NVA hunkered down in bunkers in Connex containers buried in the laterite. I got up with Geist, Spec 4 Geist, and fired. We got them on the HT1s and asked them to surrender. They refused, so I fired 8 M72 laws into the bunker, into the Connex containers, and we killed about 40 more NVA. And at that point, the first infantry division started showing up. The Mike Force started showing up. A 1,000-man Mike Force showed up from Tong. In come the C Team Commander and Sergeant Major Wells, Lieutenant Colonel Hayes, and Sergeant Major Wells, and they led the attack on one NVA. Body snatcher was left behind by the 165th, and for that, Wells was out in front of the Mike Force, and he got shot at, and he jumped down. He fell down in the mud, and Colonel Hayes was on an M60 machine gun from our camp, firing at this one son of a gun, and finally he got him. So Hayes put him in for a Silver Star, and that's how Wells got his Silver Star. After that, I spent the rest of the day cleaning up the camp, loading bodies on deuce and halves. Jerry Friend and I dug a pit with these 5 dozer, threw the bodies in there. We had no idea how many there were. There were hundreds, and maybe at least 500 or 600. Had trouble getting anybody to help me. I had to use my pistol to force them to help me bury their own. The only one that really cared about us was the sergeant major from the B team. He came by and wanted to know how we were doing. Major Menchaca was there. He came by.
Mendoza. Not
Mendoza. I'm sorry. Menchaca is it's Mike Menchaca is the guy on our team. I got stuff. Mendoza was there with the sergeant major. Great guy. Menchaca, not so great. He was more concerned about why the lieutenant took over command of the A team. And I told him what happened, and he got mad at me, and they sent us both away about 2 weeks later after we cleaned the mess up. And I wrote to mops them and put everybody in for awards and decorations. But that was my stay from March through end of August. And I went to A-324 after that and commanded an A team. That's my contribution. Anybody remember any of that stuff?
These guys are all a little bit later than that.
Okay, so we set the stage for you.
All right, next up, who we got next?
I'm not sure. This is Bob Bernard. I was at Tong and Chon from October 1968 until about April 1969. I was the medic. And I had served with several different commanders. I had a Captain Atkinson and Captain Brown and 2 other captains whom I can't remember their names because they weren't there very long, but one of them became a colonel, and I met him 14 years later at Fort Hood, Texas. I was there during, well, we didn't have any ground attacks. We had several mortar attacks. I told them down at the C team that I wanted to go to a nice, quiet little Special Forces A camp where I could survive for a year. And they said, well, we got just the place for it. We're going to send you to Tonle Chon. They haven't had a ground attack in 4 months. They hadn't had a ground attack in 7 months and hadn't had a mortar attack in 4 months. And the night I arrived, the 31st of October, we had the first mortar attack. It hit the airstrip only. And then later we started getting mortared pretty regularly. I went out on my first combat operation around November.
Mute.
And I don't, anyway, it'd have been November 68. And I had my first time out of the camp. I got into a contact that lasted from about 8 o'clock in the morning until sometime in the afternoon. And they sent D Company, I think it was D Company of the 7th Armored, the 7th Cav. came in and gave me support, kind of helped rescue my group. We had a lieutenant killed that day, had a helicopter shot down, killed one of my team members. His name was John R. Thomas, a young fellow. I had only met him once and didn't really get to know him. I served under a Sergeant Major Bloxham, Sergeant Major Lyons. Well, they were master sergeants then and later became sergeant majors. They both passed away, and I served under a Captain Adolph. He became a bird colonel, and I met him in 1995 at the Special Forces Convention in Las Vegas. I was awarded a Silver Star during my first combat operation. We had a guy wounded on the ground, had a maxillofacial injury, and I called for medevac. The medevac chopper came in and was drawing him up on a jungle penetrator, and it got stuck in the trees. So they cut the cable, and that helicopter got away. I climbed up into the tree and got him out of the tree, got him down on the ground, and took care of him until we broke contact, and I was able to get him evacuated. Don't have a great story to tell.
Bob,
I served with some of the. Yes, sir.
you are not able to see everything, but right next to you over here is Ralph Smith, who I believe would have been your other medic at the team at the time.
Ralph Smith was, yes, Ralph and I, we overlapped Ralph Smith and I overlapped just for a short period of time, and they took him away from me, sent him back to the B team, and then from there on to, I guess, to the headquarters. Good man, excellent man.
Ralph, your microphone is turned off. Go press the button on the bottom left of your screen. Ralph, you can't speak because your microphone is turned off. Go ahead and turn it on. Yell for help.
Ralph, can you hear?
He can hear, but he can't talk right now. He's trying to find
How's
out.
that?
There
How's
we go.
that?
Good. Go, Ralph.
Yeah, I'm looking for Bernard and I don't see him up here.
He's that telephone right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had even more trouble than you did.
Yeah. No, Bob, they didn't send, I came from B-33.
Right. You
I
came
finished my
from-
tour. I finished my tour in Tonlachon.
Okay.
I came out in September. I think it was the 4th, but I'm not sure, of 68. And I left in early April because I was home for my birthday, April 9th. I left April to come home in 69. So I was there September to April. I was there September 68. Oh boy, I got that mixed up. I was there September 68 to April 69. I got some bad information on you. I didn't think you were with us anymore. I'm glad to see you are.
Well, thank you. This is Ralph Smith, right?
Right, right.
Okay.
And I was
Super,
there.
Ralph.
Yeah, Ralph Smith. And I was there. I was a sergeant and then a staff sergeant. And I was
Yes,
there
sir.
when John, in fact, I wrote it up. when, for Memorial Day editorial when John was killed.
Oh,
It was, I remember the day clearly.
Mike was just coming in when as you were going out.
yes,
Mike Duncan,
yes. I
your
I was
microphone
still
is
there.
turned off.
Well, I think we were together most of the time, weren't we, Bob?
Yes, well,
Yeah.
I overlapped with you just not a long time. I left in, I guess left in August of '69 and got home around September, back to Phoenix. And then I stayed in the Army until 1989. I spent a total of 34 years, 1955 to 1989. Loved every minute of it and wish I could do it again. Parts
Yeah.
of it,
We
parts
first
of
met,
it were,
we first met in Texas. I don't know if you remember it, but I remember it.
okay.
I was down there for my, I wasn't in special forces. I was in the night reserve. And I was sent down there for aidsman training. And I met you in the cafeteria. We had a long talk. You were wearing
Oh.
the beret.
I'll be darned. Okay. Wow.
Steve, is there a structure to this we should follow?
We try to do chronological, and the next person really should be Mike Duncan because he was coming in just before you left.
Yes, Smith and Bernard, I think
I-
we overlapped a little bit.
Yes, we did.
No,
I remember.
I was a capo there for about a month, maybe a little bit longer. Got there about the same
Yeah.
time that Captain Brown showed up. And you may have remembered we were sitting in the talk here, and Captain Brown got a package from the care package from the U.S. And he opened up a big box, had a cake in it. And in that cake had been baked a revolver, a large revolver, I think like a 1917 45. And he said, well, my boys back in the States are thinking about me. It's kind of like sending a
Yeah.
snowball to
Well, he
Alaska.
wore
He,
that-
he had a good laugh out of that. I don't know if
He-
you remember that or
He
not.
wore that revolver with pride.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, good. Yeah.
Just earlier, George Mitchell's widow called me up just to tell me that he would have enjoyed the meeting. But he had passed away in 2013, I believe.
Who was that?
Oh.
I'm sorry.
George Mitchell, who was probably a replacement for Bob as a medic in about 1069. And he stayed on for almost a year there. Martin, let's see.
Yes,
No,
sir.
we have two Martins here. Martin
Wow.
Intercal is not. Okay. Ray, you're coming in 70. The rest of you guys are all late people, aren't you? No, 1970 people.
Well, I just came back from my father's funeral and I came down with a bout of malaria. So they kept me in the C team for 2 months. And then Chon got hit, killed 3 Americans. They were just on their way to the shower. So I went, Sergeant Major Joe Taylor and I had coffee every morning at about 4 o'clock in the morning. And he asked me if I heard about Chon. And I says, yeah, I guess you're gonna have to send me out there, aren't you? So he nodded and I forget what month that was. Do you have that info? I can't
I think he
remember.
came in February of 70.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And I wasn't there very long, a little over a month, I think. But while there, we got mortared pretty regular. You never knew when it was going to happen. It happened anytime through the day. So the C team colonel came out in a helicopter, and he got a hold of me. He says, "Come on, we're going to go look for that son of a bitch." And off we took, between rounds falling, and we were looking for perhaps a bomb crater where this critter was. And at any rate, we never found him. And we had a 50 caliber as a door gunner, which surprised me. Anyway, he tried to operate the gun, and it didn't. He couldn't fire it. So I stepped in and set the timing and that sort of thing, engaged it, and got it firing. But anyway, we didn't find the guy, and we came back to camp. I took out one time when we was getting mortared, the team sergeant, he was an older fellow, 44 at the time, and he was from the reserves. But during the mortars dropping all around, he sat out in a chair, a folding chair. He just sat there the whole darn time. He disappeared in a cloud of smoke, and when it all cleared, I went out of the team house to see if he was okay. He was, but because of his, they figured he was losing it, so they sent him back to the C team, and I became a team sergeant at that time.
Was that McNulty?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think that sounds familiar.
Or possibly Lyons?
Geez, I don't know.
All right.
I got a picture of him. I'm trying to download some of my pictures to send you, Steve, but I'm having a terrible time doing that. And I have a whole bunch of tunnels, Chon. And it shows all our hooches and vehicles, all full of shrapnel holes and everything. And we never did find that a guy was firing mortars until we went out on, I took a company out on patrol, and I was the only American and with the company, and we would cross signs of the enemy moving around us, and so we started following them, and we moved fast, and we found spots where they tried to set up an ambush, and that was obvious. And but we was coming too quick, and they never got set to set up an ambush for us. But then it got dark, it got night, and I said, well, they know where we're at, and we don't know where they're at. So we took up defensive positions for the night, and as soon as it got dark, real dark, we started seeing green flares. So they were all around us, and I tried to estimate the distance from us where they were, and I called in artillery fire on them from the camp. And this went on all night. Every time a flare went up, I'd ask for some howitzer rounds and try to keep them off their toes so they couldn't attack us. Come morning, I had them put rounds close to our perimeter and back them up as we moved out. Found several blood trails in that, but no bodies. We got back to camp. We didn't have anyone injured, which I kind of like, but I kind of got my fanny chewed because I've called in too many rounds like that. Colonel asked me why I called so many rounds in. I said, well, to get my men back alive. And so he didn't push it any further, and that was the end of that. he mentioned something about it costing $85 a round. As far as I was concerned, it could cost $1,000 a round. I was still gonna call them. So, you know, the interesting thing when I got to Chon that day, these three men, I can't remember their names, but that were killed, they were on their way to the shower. And their shower shoes laid around on the path toward the shower from the hooch. And nobody wanted to pick them up. And they stayed there until I think I left. It was still there on the ground. So that's how the guys felt about them. I wasn't there too long when we only had a lieutenant at the time as commander. I got orders to report back to B-36 because I was with them in '67. They were looking for people to come back to the unit. They were building the unit back up in Long High. Anyway, so I had orders to report back to them, and that was the end of my time at Chon.
Oh, you reminded me that I should make an announcement. I have two websites. One is specialforcesbooks.com. The other one is specialforcesphotos.com. Don't abbreviate the first one by saying sfbooks.com, because you'll get the gay bookstore in San Francisco. But the photos.com is a relatively new website. And the intention is to allow you to put by yourself to put pictures up in an album for each ACAMP. There are albums set up for each ACAMP, and you should be able to go up there and post the pictures, and other people can come by and go to the captions and say, I'm the third guy from the left. So you
What
have
was that? What was that again? What address?
Special Forces Photos, that's plural.
Okay.
.com. Now you have to go up there and you have to sign in with your whole name, Ray Freitas. If you sign with anything else, Lefty 43, I'm going to dump you, because I get hundreds of Russian bots trying into that site. And I just dump anyone whose name I don't have in my database as SF. But it's
Okay.
a good place to go putting pictures up.
All right, that sounds pretty good. I'll try and do that.
If you need help, you can call me after you get approved. And then you call me, I'll help you if you need help.
Hey,
All right, so-
Steve, what about the stuff we sent you already? What'd you do with that?
I've got it on my email, but I'm so far behind in moving things, it's difficult. If you can put it up there, that would be very helpful.
Okay.
George, I think you're next on the list, because I think you start coming in about this time.
Me, George Trigus.
You, George Trigus.
Okay. I came in after, with all the action that was going on that he was just talking about.
He froze.
Your radio operator came in about February of '70, which is about the same time Ray came in. So while
I came in a little, just maybe another month or so. I had been trying to get on the team. I would see, Sergeant Brennan, and I'd bug him all the time, about getting out there, and so finally he gave in and let me go.
what was it that attracted you to Tong Chon?
I used to get frustrated sometimes, at the B team, and you just, you want to be out there where maybe it was being youthful, where the action was, and plus Jack, I wanted to be out there. I always liked Jack. But anyway, so finally they let me out. I remember when I was there, I I wasn't there too long. I had R&R coming up. I was going to meet my wife out in Hawaii, and I'm walking across the compound, and all of a sudden, oh, it hit me. I got malaria, you know, and so they medevaced me out, put me in the hospital, and I said, "Listen, I can't stay here. You know, I mean, I have my wife coming out to meet me in Hawaii, and you know, I just can't do this." I said, "Well, the only thing we can do is give you another blood test, and if you know if it doesn't show up, uh, we'll have to let you go." So they gave me another test, and sure enough, everything went clear. You know, I got to go on R&R and meet my wife. And I remember on the last day in Hawaii, all of a sudden it hit me again, you know. And but I got back on the plane. It was a rough time coming back, but it just strikes me. You know, I remember Captain Cresswell, remember George Fraser, and of course I had mentioned this to you before. George Fraser, you know, he was a Christian, and he always, you know, offered to share his faith with us. And you know,
Yeah, sure.
he would tell me stories about, you know, being led by the Spirit of God out in the field. You know, how that saved his life. And so you know, I haven't never been able to reach him, but you know, I just want to say that, you know, I heard, you know, I understand the call, you know, the beauty of the one I fear. But I really, you know, appreciated, you know, his stance, and he always did things to help us young people out when we were going the wrong way. Of course, I remember Sergeant and Trenchell. I believe Tom Martin. I remember you. I thought that you lived in Florida, but I'm not sure. But I remember you talking about the future, about building a home. I'm pretty sure that was you. There were a lot of people that came and go that I don't really recall their names. Pappy Thomas. I know in when I got back to the States, I was at 10th Special Forces for a while, and I ran into let's see here, Lieutenant Brown. He was there. And I ran into Hibbler. He was the head radio man at the B-33. And I know Bo McFadden, I remember he was on the team. James Leslie, yeah, for a long time I couldn't think of his name. Jimmy Jet, he was on the team there. And Trenchell, I know he passed away. Owen Brennan was the top. When I got out of the service, I had some family out in California, and I went and I got to visit with Owen, you know, which is him and his wife. That was nice. I don't know how long he passed away, but Captain, you know, there was a Captain Cresswell, and there was another captain. There was one from actually from the 101st Airborne, who ended up being in charge for a while. So that's just some things that come to mind.
Tom, you sort of came up next to that point.
Yeah, I'm on now.
Okay. You were a demo man. You like to blow things up, I guess.
I'm sorry, what?
You were engineer. You like to blow things up.
Yep. I used to blow up the leftover ammunition when they went into Cambodia. We had our airstrip lined some places on both sides with extra ammunition and stuff for supplies. We go out there every once in a while and blow it up, try to get rid of it.
You were sufficiently close to the border that people were bringing things in from the operations in Cambodia in June.
Yeah, I was there. I actually, they sent me out there to for a replacement. Val Myers, he got killed,
Yeah.
and I hadn't been to the B team very long, and I was just looking at the duty roster. I found a couple of the guys I knew, and next morning I said, "Oh yeah, Val got killed, so they're sending you out there." So it doesn't mean I hadn't been in Vietnam very long. It's kind of a wake-up call, when you go replace somebody and and sleep in their bunk. It's kind of shakes you up a little bit. But yeah, we got mortared quite a bit out there, pretty much on a regular basis. Sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a week, usually at night. But yeah, I remember a lot of the guys, and a lot of them are gone now. I actually got a picture of the team. The only one not on there is George Frigas.
Yeah, I'm not on there. I was, I I was in the hospital. I know I had malaria, and then I got a Red Cross thing where the family, Jack, just bear with me a second here. John Pimenko, yeah, John Pimenko. I think he was CCC. He had been killed, and so I went for with the body and for the funeral. But that was the time period that the pictures were taken. So
Yeah.
I see somebody there took my place. I don't know if it was Hamilton, had blonde hair.
Yeah. What I got on the back of my picture here was the first row is Preston Terrell, Lieutenant.
Oh yeah, yep.
Captain
Cresswell.
Captain Cresswell, and George Mitchell,
Yeah,
then me, Jack Ryan,
yeah,
Martin and
Trenchel.
Trenchel,
yeah,
got George Fraser,
yeah,
Jerome McFadden,
yeah.
Lieutenant Tom Brown,
Mhm.
and McCann, Jim Leslie, that's Jimmy Jett,
Jimmy Jett, yeah,
George Hamilton, and Owen Brennan.
top, yeah.
Yeah, Sergeant Brennan, he kind of nicknamed Jimmy Jett because he came back from R&R at that bright red silk smoking jacket he'd wear around at night.
Uh-huh.
We had a lot of fun.
Bo, you were there in that picture. So what's your story?
So I started in late September of '69 at Cheatland, and they closed that camp down while I was there, and I ended up moving to Minton. And when Tong lost a couple of Americans in April of '70, they moved me from Minton into Tonglashon. They flew me over there with my interpreter. I was on the ground for about 20 minutes, and they put me on a helicopter and flew me north toward Anlock and dropped me off and picked up Lieutenant Espy and took him back to camp. So it's didn't know any of the troops. My interpreter said, "No, I'm not going with you." So I was on the ground out there with about 25 or 30 of the indigenous troops. And we spent 3 or 4 days there and kind of set up, well, we walked into a bunker complex and kind of set up around that for the night and called in Spooky that circled around, and mostly the LLDB counterpart that was out there did most of the coordination, also with the 105s back at camp. So we were kind of hanging there for a while and never really made much progress, kind of pushed in on the camp, on the bunker complex a little bit. And then we moved out of there the next day and left it for an American unit to come in and kind of clean things up in a couple of weeks, which they did. We lost one of our soldiers, kind of the first one probably to stumble across somebody at the time. But then I went, we made our way back down the road into camp, and what I distinctly remember is Lieutenant Espy coming out. He was the nicest guy. He came out, walked partly out the road past the old fire base at the base of the hill and met me on our way back in. And then, this was probably about the 20th of April or the end of April. And I think, I don't remember the timing, but the US had invaded Cambodia. So there was still a lot of action going on. Like Tom said, we were getting mortared regularly and rockets coming in on occasion. But I don't remember when the Americans pulled back out of Cambodia, but there was an old fire base at the base of the hill near the airstrip. And when I got there, the only thing that was in there was a US tank that had been left behind. And does anybody remember if that was an operational air base or a fire base for very long, or if they just moved in during the incursion into Cambodia? Was it ever there in 68 or?
Where was
Yeah.
it?
So that would have, I've seen a couple of photos posted on online taken from down at the base of the hill, and it appears that there had been a fire base there, but maybe it was just kind of a transition point for the Americans going into Cambodia. But
Yeah,
I
think it was a leftover tank because they got the shit shot out of them. Everything was dragging something. When they came back, a truck was dragging a Jeep. I mean, everybody was dragging something, and they left so many equipment. They left so much ammunition. It was just leftovers.
And that would have been right before I got there, because I think they had already pulled out by the end of April when I showed up.
April is when it started. So it was into June. April when it started, it took them June even to go in there, I believe. So they were there for like 60 days. So you're talking about it, June and July. Ralph, you were there at that time. What's your recollection of the timing?
Well,
June,
yeah, I seem to remember Bo from Minton, actually. How long were you at Minton, Bo?
I showed up there shortly before Christmas in '69, and then stayed there until the end of April.
I have a picture of you and me and Freddie Myers. And then I went to Tong about the same time you did, right? Actually, I went to Tong when Steele was killed. And they took me, I think it was about the same time you went.
It sounds like it would have been.
Right. And that tank was there when I got there, because yesterday in the Minton meeting, I said, no, I was telling Dan Courtney, I said, no, I've got a picture of me on that tank. And he said, well, I don't remember that tank. And so it must have been at Tonglashan where that picture was.
well,
Yeah.
there was a tank at the end of the runway at Tonlashan. Is that the one you're referencing?
That must have been the one. Yeah, that must have been the one. But I remember when McCann first came to camp. And him and I went on I think, was his first operation. And we were out in the field, and there was some mortar rounds going off and hitting Tonglashon. We could hear the mortar rounds, and there was a fact pilot up there. And he said, well, pop some smoke so I can find you. And he says, and tell me where they are from you. So we popped the smoke. And all of a sudden, some guy from the 11th ACR gets on the radio. And apparently we were just outside their operating area, and they were being helicoptered out. The choppers saw our smoke, took off, and left them there. So that was McCann's first operation.
I stand corrected. It was April 30th that Nixon announced the troops were going to go into Cambodia. And
Yeah,
it was 29 to 30 June was when that operation was terminated from the US point of view.
right. Other than that, I wanted to ask George, you said you remembered Hebler, Dennis?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Little story. Of course, I was, radio operator B-33. And, we put some long hours in on downstairs there. So I fell asleep one night. And who comes in but
Don't
Dennis.
tell me, Captain Ham.
What's that? Oh, I remember Captain Ham.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, he saw me sleeping, and gave me the, sort of set me straight. And he said, he had said, I got to do something, He said that there was a bunch of people that got blown up in a lumbretta outside of the camp. And he said, tomorrow morning you go down there and you got to load the bodies up, in body bags. That was my punishment. And then I went down there the next day, and they did it already,
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember that. And then, Hibbler, when I got back to the States, I went to the 10th Special Forces, and I ran into him. They had him on a desk job. It was like the secretary or something,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think
all his
half the,
typing.
I think half the people at Minton and Tonglashon went back to the 10th group, because I went to the 10th group when I got back also.
Yeah.
And but anyway, it was an interesting time, but my perception of the time frame seems to be a little disoriented.
Uh-huh. No problem.
I missed Mark Martinez, who seemed to come just before Ralph did.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Martin.
Can
Martin?
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Well, it's good to be here with you folks. Been many, many years. And quite frankly, I hadn't even given Vietnam or my experience much thought until I received the call from Mr. Sherman here. And it's a pleasure being here with you guys today. Bill, good to meet you in person here again. Been a few decades here.
Yeah, nice seeing you, Martin.
And locked in. I was assigned to B-33, arrived in Nam about, January the 3rd. And I was a radio operator at B-33 for about a month and a half, until Tonglashon got hit. They got the incoming, as I understood it. Well, three of our brothers were killed and two were medevaced.
So I was immediately transferred to Tonle Shan. When I arrived at Tonle Shan, the bodies of our fellow officers were still at Tonle Shan. And I began performing my duties as radio operator in Tonle Shan, but I was only there for maybe a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, after which I was transferred to Loc Ninh, A-334, and that's where I completed my tour in Nam.
Yes.
So Martin, you shared the room with me. Used to, our quarters were downstairs under the ground.
Yes,
And
I remember that that fancy little cove. that we
Oh,
used to
yeah.
stay in. Yes,
Yeah. Well, it's good to
So-
see your,
same,
good to see your
same.
face.
So I was
Right,
kind of
okay.
hoping that Lieutenant Brown was going to be on the call here this morning, because I definitely remember his high spirits and smiling face from those years. But one of the things I was also vaguely remembering is that he was pretty close with one of the majors back at the B team. And it seems to me in the summer of '70, while I was there at Tong Shan, I left Tong Shan probably the end of August or the middle of September, and was transferred up to CCN, where I finished out my tour for a year and a half that I spent over there. But this major that Lieutenant Brown knew was, as I recall it, he was killed in a helicopter crash out observing one of the operations or assisting an operation. Does anybody remember that? Tom or George, do you guys remember that?
Yeah, he was at the B team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know there was, I'm trying to think of the names. There was a Lynch.
Well, I
I
don't
think
know.
his, Bo, I think his name came up yesterday. Was it Murray?
Murray was the B team commander.
Yeah.
There was two. The one was killed, and the other one was wounded. But they're, yeah, when they're wounded, I mean, in the helicopter crash. So I think one was a CL and one was the XL.
Wow.
Let's
Yeah,
see.
I ended up, well, a couple little asides here before I step back a little bit. I extended my tour, and my story is that a lot like Martin, is that I couldn't really, I've never really dwelled on Vietnam that much, but I couldn't get away from it. It's always there in the back of my mind, and it kind of rolled around. And my wife and I, in 1995, traveled to Vietnam. We had some friends that were working over. This was shortly after they reopened the country for folks to come in, and tourism was really difficult. But we stayed in Saigon and made our way up to An Loc, went down to the Minton rubber plantation and stood outside of what had been Camp Minton, and we ate lunch out there in the rubber plantation, and things didn't look a lot different. And then we drove the road to try and make our way out to where Tonle Shan was along the river, and there was a gate across the road. And our driver said, well, there's a prison down there, there's a re-education camp down there or something, they're not going to let us pass. But we spent a month traveling around and made our way up to Hanoi in '95, and by the time that month was over, I was ready to leave. My nerves were rattled. It was interesting. I really loved the Vietnamese people, and I loved my time over there dearly. But boy, I was ready to go. The interesting thing is, I pulled up Google Earth last night, looked at the air photo of the Tonle Shan area, and it seems like every kilometer down the road or whatnot, there's a coffee shop. As you kind of make your way from Vietnam into Cambodia, and it's all agricultural now. A lot going on out there over the 50-some years since we were there.
Hmm.
We were
Um,
probably going back to Vietnam about the same time in 1995. I was there for a little bit over a month, mostly staying in Saigon. But I got tired of seeing all the banners of Ho Chi Minh around and turned me off. And when I came home, haven't gone back since.
Yeah, the cyclo drivers in Saigon, they were the wounded Vietnamese vets, the guys that fought for the South, and all they could do is pull people around in a cyclo and make enough money to get by. It was, a lot of that was pretty sad to see. And then, the whole plight of the mountain yards after the war was a disgrace. It's hard to take that. But I have some very fond memories of the people I served with at Tong, Chon. And Owen Brennan was quite the team sergeant. He kept us kept us on a straight and narrow. But I'll tell you, we had a minigun that came off of a helicopter somewhere. And,
I remember that.
I should have had my engineering degree before I went in the Army, or I might have been able to figure this out. But I was always having the mechanic weld up something a little bit different so we can mount this thing on the back of a Jeep. And then you had to wrestle that baby when you fired it off. But we'd go down to the end of the runway and shoot up Conex containers with this minigun. And to this day, I'm not quite sure why, Owen Brennan and the lieutenant let us go on and on like that. But I guess we were blowing off steam and maintaining our sanity. But it was one of the things I remember.
I have a picture of somebody. I don't know if it's you or if it's, it could have been Jimmy Jett. But, shooting that 50 cal and on the Jeep. But it's, I have a picture from the back, so I can't quite tell who it is.
So it seemed like, while I was there, the months of May through August, early September, there were a lot of operations out and around the area. I think the biggest thing is the incoming that we received all of the time. Some of the operations would run into a little resistance out and about, but not a lot. And I think that probably had something to do with the fact that the U.S. was into Cambodia at the time, and they had their hands full elsewhere. So there wasn't as much activity through our area the way I saw it.
Bill, you're the last person who hasn't popped in here. You closed out the camp.
Well, let's see, I closed out Loch Ninh and I went briefly to Talashan. And I guess I was there for 6, 7, 8 weeks, something like that. And then I went up to B-51 at Dong Baten. So I was in Talashan for just a short period of time.
But they turned the camp over to the Border Rangers. And I think that was just shortly when you left or just shortly after you left.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oops, that's wrong team. Okay. So you probably 2 weeks after you left, they closed it down. You and McCann were
Yeah.
the last 2 medics on the team.
Yeah.
And then Tom Martin, you were there. You stayed till it closed. You and Martin Intrical.
I'm sorry, what?
You and Martin Intrical were there till they turned the camp, when they turned the camp over to the Border Ranger.
Yeah. Martin and Trenchel was the only one that stayed. He stayed there for a while and then everybody else left. And that was pretty much the end of the camp. I had heard, it was several years later, that the mountain yards, when they put the camp under siege, I heard they held out for about 17 months before the camp actually fell. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's kind of what I heard.
I I'm doing a series of books on Vietnam. And they're by year. And in the 1973 book, I'm the editor of the book. I had a Vietnamese who was in the Border Rangers co-write with me an article about what happened to the camps. And on Tong Shan, to me, it was very interesting and very much a tribute to your efforts because okay, the Border Ranger unit that it was turned over to was the 92nd Border Rangers. And then in March of 73, they tried to kick them out. The NVA tried to kick them out because it was just in the middle of everything. The base was cut off from all communication supplies by road. It couldn't conduct patrols around the base. Helicopter supply became increasingly difficult because of the anti-aircraft fire, and supplies were dropped by fixed-wing aircraft. For 16 consecutive weeks, the enemy shelled the base 300 times, using more than 10,000 assorted rounds, and launched 11 attacks by infantry and 9 by sappers. In the meantime, they kept upping propaganda activities, telling the Rangers to evacuate. But the defenders held fast and successfully drove back all enemy attacks. By 11 April 1974, the situation within the base became utterly untenable. The badly mangled Ranger Battalion finally had to break out and fall back on Anlock. The commander, Lieutenant Colonel Le Van Ngon, was promoted ahead of schedule in recognition of his unit's valiant performance. What surprised the hell out of me is that the Border Rangers were CIDG without SF support, and the LLDB were still in command. And these guys have been ripping off the CIDG for their pay, for their uniforms, for even their haircuts in some cases. And at that moment when they were turned over, excuse me, at that moment when they were turned over, the only thing that really changed was the high command disappeared. The LLDB high command disappeared. And that they no longer had to make payoffs to the B team. So that's the only thing that changed. And these guys who are out there as the LLDB personnel at the camp, now called Border Ranger people, realized that they had to become leaders. Otherwise, they're going to get killed by their own people. And in many, many camps, they did so very successfully. And Tong Shan was one of the more successful examples. 1974, April of 74, is a long time for one of those camps to continue after you left it in November of 1970. So that's what happened to the camp between the time you left in 1975.
Hey, Steve,
Yes.
the way you expressed that was great. You know, I was there at the beginning where the leadership of the LLDB was non-existent. They were ripping off the CIDG, and the major in charge of the LLDB, the Lachlan Babiet, was hiding under his bed during the big battle. And when I went to get him, I drug him out from under his bed, and he had a Buddhist necklace carved in ivory between his teeth, hoping that the NVA or BC, if they got him, they wouldn't shoot him because he was a Buddhist. And what I did is kicked him in the butt, showed him the front, pull that Buddhist necklace thing out of his mouth, that figurine, and he got at it. The only other leadership I saw at that time was in the commercial eye, the Cambodians. They knew how to handle disciplinary problems. And the Khmer Kampuchea Krum, the communist Chuhoi guys from Cambodia, they had some tough characters. But to see the transition from 67 to 74, where the corrupt LLD leadership collapsed at the B team level, and the LLDB at the A team level had to sink or swim, is refreshing to see how you pulled everything together and you came to that conclusion is noteworthy. And I appreciate your work. Thank you.
Well, one of the people that was a great help to me in organizing things was Steve Adolph, who was the XO at your camp over there. And later he was involved in a MACV study of graft and corruption in the LLDB. And I've gotten a lot of the documentation on it. And a fellow who was at the meeting yesterday, Dick Jackson, was also in that study. I didn't know that until recently. And we're going to compare notes a bit later on that. But it really, the change was really something major, because it just was inconceivable that these guys could have overcome the problems of 10 years of misleadership.
Steve,
Right.
it's Ralph Smith. I wanted to say something about the makeup of the camp. But if I make a funny noise, I broke 2 ribs last night. I fell in the garage. So once in a while I wince, We had Montagnards, Khmers, and Vietnamese in there. And we had about 400 strikers, as I recall. And we had probably 250 or so dependents. The best, for my observation and what everybody agreed to at the time, was the best company was the Cambodians. And I was fortunate enough to do almost all after a certain point, I did almost all my patrols and activities with the Khmers. But they had good leadership. It was first tribal and then recognized by us. Are we gonna, you said we were gonna do this basically by the period you were there, and I think I must have missed the period when I was there. And do you want me to say anything about 68, 69?
Please do.
Pardon?
Please do. Yes.
Okay, well, I was first a team medic for B-33. And of course, that gave me the responsibility of doing inspections on all the camps in the B-33 area. And they had not, in the summer of 68, recovered from the attack they'd had. That battle was what everybody talked about, twice as often that Tonle Shan itself. I remember the first time I got there, there was this huge hole in the between the camp was built inside basically two circles, and there was a huge hole between the two circles on the what would have been the south side, I believe. And this hole was probably 35 feet across and 25 feet wide. And the story goes that on the night of the attack, an engineer got they didn't call them engineers, but the sapper got through, and his job was to knock out the 4 deuce pit, and he ran up and threw a charge into the 4 deuce ammo bunker, and that shook the camp up, and it was one of the main things that, as I heard the story, turned.
Hey, Ralph,
Yeah.
Ralph, I was there when that happened.
Oh,
And
were you?
yeah, and let me tell you the story behind that.
Okay.
About a week before 7 August, General Creighton Abrams showed up in a helicopter, not an armada like Westmoreland, but he showed up in one helicopter. And I was the second lieutenant there, and I met him at the airfield and brought him up to the camp, which you're correct, was made out of laterite, and we had an inner circle that we defended ourselves. And he started chewing my butt because of police call and this and that. He jumped into the mortar pit, the 81 millimeter mortar pit, and said, why don't you have more illumination rounds ready to be fired? And I said, sir, you can't really take them all out because the corrosion rate is so high that the moisture that they won't illuminate when you fire them at night. So you couldn't afford to take them all out. So he said, shut up, Lieutenant, fix it. Then he moved on, and he wanted to know why the CIDG were complaining about the Claymore mines not having C4 in them. And I told him that they were taking the C4 out and using it to cook the rice with their helmets.
Right.
Black the C4 on us. And then he saw 463L pallets of mortars and about 1,000 rounds of HE and white phosphorus sitting on the ground. And he looked at me and said, Lieutenant, what's that? And I said, oh, we just showed up yesterday, sir, the 4 deuces. He said, well, I want you to emplace those mortars, and I'm going to be back for inspection. Yeah, yes, sir. So he took off, and so Jerry Friend and I used to be a 4 deuce gun bunny in 101st. So I went up the FAC. We actually dug the pits with a D5 dozer and revetted it with sandbags, and took the 46 3L pallets and put over between the 2 mortar pits and the the PSP, and 1,000 rounds were packed in there. It was like a wine cellar. And then I went up with the FAC and registered the guns on road junctions. I knew how, and Jerry Friend, my commo guy, was firing the gun, and the North Vietnamese were watching us, and I put the mortar pit in a place that away from the main activity, so in case Creighton came back, he wouldn't be in the way, and we'd have it done, and we'd have time to train them up. So it was in an out of the way place. And the night of 7 August, the sapper team had penetrated the wire that had been maintained by the contingent from Minton, blew the wire. The sapper team went in there and put Chicom C4 on a long bamboo pole and blew the mortar pit. creating that hole you saw, and you were there, Ralph, and killed about 200 North Vietnamese that were attacking. And later on, I thanked General John Abrams, who was his son, for what his dad did for accidentally saving our lives. And then I thanked, when I worked for him in the Pentagon, and then I thanked his younger son, Abe Abrams, who went on to be a 4-star, and for the same thing. So Abrams, who hated special forces, did us a big favor at Tonlé. So that's the rest of the story.
On the rest of the story, the lieutenant colonel, the guy who was promoted to lieutenant colonel, I mentioned it previously. I just went and checked and found that in 1970, he was a captain and the LLDB commander at Tong.
Oh,
He was there for that whole 4-year period of time. Now, prior to his year, I went back to 1967. So I didn't go every month. I just jumped back to 67 in about October, I think. And the commander was a guy named Mon, M-A-N-H.
And he was a major, and he was a mathematician from Saigon. And you can see him in the picture with my arm around him under the flag that I sent you.
Was he the guy with a Buddhist?
Yes, he was the guy with the Buddhist ivory Buddhist figurine in between his teeth. And, I was nice to him.
Well, that sounds more Cambodian than Vietnamese.
Yeah.
Was he
I was
Cambodian?
nice to him. I didn't hurt him. I just grabbed him and encouraged him, and kind of kicked him in the butt. And
was Mon Cambodian or Vietnamese?
He was Vietnamese.
Okay, well, the amulet in the teeth is more of a Cambodian.
Yeah. Well, it was probably a Cambodian Buddhist. He wasn't Wahao. He was from Saigon.
Okay.
So he was probably a regular Buddhist.
Well, he's Vietnamese, but he was hiding under the bed. The Cambodians wouldn't have hid under the bed if they had the amulet in their mouth. They were invulnerable.
Oh well. You say you got promoted and survived.
Well, Ngan, the guy in 1970, lasted there all 4 years and got promoted when he brought his team out of the camp.
Okay, well, this
At minimum 4 years.
But the major probably went back to teaching math in Ho Chi Minh City.
I would have to go back and look at each of the reports in between to find out what changes of command happened. But I picked 2 dates and went back and looked at those dates. While we're here, I will show you some things here. This up on the website. That we have, that's specialforcesbooks.com. Under Tongleshan, you will find that you can download this map. And the map is set up to be a tabloid sized piece of paper. So you can't print that paper in most of printers, but you can print it. There's a feature on the printer where that you can print a large sheet and it comes in smaller sheets. It prints out smaller sheets. I forget what that's called, but you can print this out. If you print it out to 100% of the size in those smaller sheets and tape them together, you're going to have a tabloid size map of the AO at 1/50,000.
How far was the camp from Cambodia?
Well, let's see.
6 kilometers.
Really? Wow. I
Yes, sir.
Ooh, I probably snuck over there a couple times. Didn't even know I was there. Okay.
If you kept going past the camp, straight down that road, going
Toward Grand Lock?
what direction? Yes, No, not towards Adlock, the opposite
Khartoum.
direction.
Towards Khartoum.
I think yes, the fishhook area was only about, well, Khartoum was next door. And then from Khartoum, they could actually mortar Khartoum from inside Cambodia. They could shell Khartoum from Cambodia.
Yeah.
And Tong and Chon was just a little bit out of range.
Let's see. What is that? Is that 13?
I'm not sure what the road was. It went right past the camp. Across
246.
that Bailey Bridge.
246.
Yeah, that
Across
Bailey
the Bailey
Bridge,
Bridge, the airstrip.
and we had a water purification unit there too. Yeah.
Well, my last night at Tonle Chon, I didn't know it was going to be my last night. They came down, NVA came down there. They said it was a battalion. It was on its way to hit the camp. And we were on that road that leads right to Cambodia. We'd set up an ambush there. And we had a little fight there. And the next morning, mostly it was Snoopy did the fight, thank goodness. But the next morning, I got called back to the camp, and they had a flight they wanted me out on by noon. I was headed home. I didn't even know it. So that was my last night in Vietnam. Well, I spent another night in Vietnam, but that was the last night in Cambodia.
Hey, about 2 weeks before they hit us on 7 August, I took a couple companies down that road that moved towards Anlock. Actually, we used a Malayan fan technique, and we went north and back to the east a little bit, but following intelligence that the patrols brought back to where the NVA was. Well, anyhow, they caught us, and I was varying my position within the formation. And I knew from the Mike Force that you didn't carry a radio because that was a signature. And if you were tall, you'd be a signature. Luckily, I was only 5'8", and I looked like everybody else. And I varied my position religiously so I wouldn't establish a pattern. But nevertheless, they ambushed us, and the first 3 guys in front of me were killed. And
Wow.
took it in the kidney, took it in the side, and we fanned out and took them on. And I was playing with the radio, trying to rescue my radio operator at the same time, keep him stable, and still talking on radio and talk back and bring in artillery and air support. And 3 or 4 NVA got under the gun and were rushing me. And here I was trying to do 3 things at once. And I yelled for Sergeant Hodgson, Steve, that's another guy from the Mike Force. And he came forward and mowed down those 3 guys. And we were able to withdraw to a landing zone, bring in a MyBuy and a Block C and get that wounded radio operator out, sent to a Special Forces hospital to live, not an Arvin hospital to die. And but this happened to bring to mind that small operation, which wasn't so small. And we stirred that hornet's nest up, and we knew they were there, but we were bait for the big red one. That's all.
Yes, they used us for bait.
Well, you talk about getting mortared. We were getting mortared heavily in the fall of 68. And the first people to come in were First Cav. And they stayed for about 10 days. I never saw just an organized bunch of pirates. You never saw anything like that. The guns they had 50 calibers on some of their helicopters, and and then they were replaced immediately by the Big Red One. They came in, and we were getting mortared every day. And of course, the story was, and somebody, I'm sorry, I don't know who said they were out of mortar range for Cambodia, but the story was, and what they told people was, well, they've got a training ground over there, and they're training these guys using us, our camp as a target, which of course was baloney, but it was passed around.
Wow.
B-33 Baranek. Did anybody know Lieutenant Baranek, Charles Baranek? He was at Arleshon. He was assigned there. He was headed home, and he was at B-33, and he'd stayed the night, and he was catching a helicopter in the morning. And when the chopper landed, we got mortared. They went after the LZ, and he was hit in the throat and died. I worked on him.
Hey, Steve, are you going to do Tinyon?
Say again?
Tinyon? That's a camp that we put in north of Tay Ninh in the middle of War Zone C.
Yeah, I was in Tinyon.
Okay, when were you there?
Before Tonleshon.
Okay, well, we helped
Yeah,
put the camp. And
I went
Captain
there in
Lopez-
September, October of 69.
Okay, well, this was 67. Captain Lopez was the commander, and I wrote him up for Silver Star. And I served with him at Fort Benning when he was in the Ranger Department. And I was going to advance in infantry school, but he was next door neighbor. And I wrote him up for Silver Star for what he did to put that camp in. And they put that camp right in the middle of that War Zone C where those NVA regiment headquarters were. And then the Mobile Guerrilla Force went in there and pissed them off even more. You guys from Depot 56 went in there and pissed them off every day, and bring body and snatch the regimental commander or body, bring him out, hang him upside down like El Douche in the middle of Tay Ninh. Man, they were tough bubbas. You were in B-56, right?
I was in B-36.
B-36, I meant, out of Hotel.
Actually, then it was Tinyon.
Tranks up?
Up. Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, I've been to Tranks Up too, where we had our basic trainees, and I served with those Mike Force guys. And
Yeah,
Captain
that was a
John
training
Keenan
camp.
Horn. Yeah, okay, well, I served with those guys too. All great guys, tough.
Yeah.
The Warren Club.
B-32 came in, took two camps, Tranks Up and another one, and they moved them closer to the border. It wasn't close enough, so they moved them one more time.
Yeah.
So ultimately, they became Khartoum and I guess Tingan, and they were right on the border at that point.
That's where my boss went to. Federico M. Ritchie. He was a major. He died a couple years ago.
All right,
And
Yeah,
then
Richie was my commander.
we
He
are
was a
being
captain.
joined by M. Who is M?
Ritchie?
Say Robert.
Say again?
Robert Brown.
Welcome. I wonder where you were.
It's a long story.
Okay. So you missed a lot of the fun here.
You missed a lot of the fun
Yeah,
here.
I'm sorry about that, but I had no choice.
Understood.
Who's talking?
Bob, this is Bob Brown.
Bob Brown.
Is Bob Brown there?
He
Super.
is there. He has got his camera working, but he's there. And so I guess Bob Brown and Bob Bernard both have problems with cameras.
No, I do not have a camera.
You can send Morse code if you had trouble with telephones.
Okay,
Is there, ask them if there's a closed caption.
There's not.
I don't have a closed caption feature
Oh, my
here.
bad.
Let's see this button,
I bet
Um,
it's slow.
but it says I have to use a token of some kind. I've never used it before.
Go ahead. I'm behind you.
Are you familiar with how that works? If you are, I will turn you into a co-host and you can, I don't know how the API tokens work.
Tell them you can't hear it.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm just not gonna be able to hear it too well, Steve. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay,
And Bob Bernard is here from your time.
Bob Bernard is here.
oh, great. Oh, Boxy,
Yes, sir. I'm here, Colonel.
Anybody else
All right.
was there from that time?
What'd you say?
I'm sorry, say again?
I'm asking the people here, who else was there from that period of time? We
What
have,
period? What period?
Bob,
Smith.
what was your time?
Well, from, oh boy, I think it was February of '69 until September of '69. Except for the time when I was,
Well, Ralph, you were there. Ralph Smith was there from that time.
Yeah, I was there when he was there. I was only there for a few days. He came in and Captain Brown, you came in what, about the middle of March of '69?
When did you
End of February, I think.
come in?
Oh, February, okay.
I came.
I
in,
left-
it's the
And
best
I
of-
left, yeah, and I left in April, early April.
Yeah, well, I came in, I believe, in February or March of '69. And then, of course, I was away from camp after I got hit for a couple of weeks. And then I finally left, as I recollect, about August, but I don't remember precisely what the date was.
I'm getting you there on January 26th, going to 27th of July.
Can he put his speaker up?
I'm sorry.
Ask him to put his speaker up. He can't hear you.
Okay. I'm at my maximum volume, but I'll come a little closer here. I have you from the 26th of January to the 27th of July.
I was there longer than July. I left, well, what can I say? You know, it's been a few years since then, and I may have left in July.
It's not that significant, but Ralph was there at the same time. Bob Bernard was there at the same time. I think Mike Duncan was there very shortly.
Yes, I was there for about a month with Bob Brown. I ran on an operation with him.
Bob, did you hear that?
I'm sorry, who was that again?
That's Mike Duncan.
It was David M. Duncombe. I was your capo officer for about a month. And then I went to B team. We ran on an operation together. We didn't have a contact, but we had a good time.
Hey, Bob Brown, did you stay in the Special Forces after you left Vietnam?
After I left Vietnam?
Yes.
No, I was in the reserve. I was in something called the 12th Group for a couple of years.
Out of
And-
Chicago?
I was in the Ready Reserve, and I would go to summer camp. I guess the last summer Special Forces summer camp I went to was in '76.
Oh, 75th Maneuver Area Control Group? Yeah, okay. Good.
We were talking about various events, and at, let me back up.
They were talking about various events.
And on the timing, Bob Bernard in December of 68, you were involved in an action and got you end up with a Silver Star. And
Octonard.
Correct.
what was that about?
So Bob Denard, Silver Star. He's talking to Bob Denard.
That was my first combat operation, Colonel, and I was got the Silver Star for I had a contact that lasted quite a while. One of my people was wounded, he had a maxillofacial injury, and I tried to get a wounded soldier out by jungle penetrator, and he got hung up into a tree. They cut the cable and it tangled up in the tree, and I went up into the tree while we were taking rounds and got him down, and for that somebody wrote me up and I got a Silver Star.
Ralph Smith, you got a Bronze Star about a week later. 2 weeks.
Yeah,
later.
that was when the Big Red One was there. They were having the mortar attacks, and the mortar rounds came. They had stacked all their supplies. They had a POL dump and an ammo dump between the runway and the river, and they had about 300 yards of supplies there. Unbelievable amount of stuff. And they started mortaring that, and I was I was on top of the what we call the Alamo, which was the place where we had 6 containers facing each other, and then they had sandbags on that and the concrete cap. It doesn't make a difference. But anyway, I saw a round hit and knocked down about 3 guys at one time. It went down like bowling pins. I mean, flop. So I grabbed a truck and drove down there. And one eye on the where the rounds were hitting, I picked I forget what I picked up, 6, 7 guys. I had to carry two of them to the truck. And I drove out of the impact zone and brought them up to our clinic. So I got a Bronze Star for that.
Hey, Steve, let me tell you how we fooled the LLDB into making contact with the enemy. It was one of genius ideas of Captain Ritchie. We'd find out where the enemy was, because if you let the CIDG and the LLDB go off, they go in the wrong direction away from the enemy because they knew where they were. So we bring them in by air assault on the other side of the enemy, maybe 3 or 4 clicks, and tell them the operation was over, and they'd shoot a beeline to get back to camp and bump into the enemy by mistake and have to fight them. I mean, that's genius. I mean, SF are smart guys, they can overcome. And of course, the other one is the Vietnamese, the LLB say, we're not here. We think we're over there.
Photo isn't showing. That's Boxy.
He said, we're here. No, we're over there. And they said, okay, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll bring a FAC up, and then we'll call in artillery on your coordinates or my coordinates. Now you tell me which coordinates you want me to bring the artillery rounds into. And they said, well, maybe you know where you are. We'll forget about that for a while, So even their sense of direction was a little off most of the time. But we adapted and overcame to conditions, and you had to outsmart the enemy, and you also had to outsmart the LLDB, who didn't want to fight. But I just thought I'd throw that out there.
I concur.
Foxy.
They would stay in a hole. But the LLDB, there were two with me on that, and they stayed inside a deep hole that had been dug by an American unit that had occupied that area, and it would have been used like the command bunker for a remain overnight position. And that's where the LLDB stayed during that battle.
Yeah.
In June of '69, something happened over there, and the team sergeant also got a Silver Star. Who was there in June of '69? Ray?
June of '69, it depends, I got hit in the 9th of May of '69, so I don't remember.
Yeah.
If I was back in camp by then or not. I think they may have, maybe,
Lyons was the team sergeant.
I'm sorry?
James Lyons was the team sergeant.
James Lyons was the
Right,
team
roger
sergeant.
that, yeah.
And on the 9th of June, he got a Silver Star.
And Lyons got a Silver Star the 9th of June.
Yeah, correct.
I remember what Sergeant Lyons did. He was on an operation north up by Quan Loy, and he was on an operation up there, and then one of those M13s was hit by a B-40, wounded the driver, and people jumped off of that the M13. Isn't that what they called it?
M113.
M113, yeah.
Yes, M113, yes. Well, anyway, he was trapped down inside that vehicle, and they were in a firefight, and Sergeant Lyons, my team sergeant, climbed on top of that M113 and reached down and pulled that guy out of that burning vehicle, which had been hit by a B-40, knocked a hole in the front of it, wounding the driver. And he saved the driver's life, and for that he got a Silver Star.
Good.
But he did that under fire. They were being shot at.
Under fire.
That's correct.
The next significant action that seems to happen was in April when Val Meyer was killed. But at that point, Stephen Steele and Charles Hines and William Gray all got awards in a very short period of time around the time Val Meyer was killed. So that's we're talking April of '70. We're talking just before the Cambodian incursion. So Ralph, were you there at that time?
No, I came after
That help?
Steele was killed.
Okay,
I came the next day.
you came the next day. All right, but it was Steele was killed. Meyer was killed on the 20th, and Steele was also killed on the 20th, and then Hines got a Bronze Star for the 2 days, and Gray, the medic, for those same 2 days. What was going on the 20th and 21st that had Steele and Myers killed?
I don't know the exact occurrence, but the camp was hit and in the late afternoon, and knocked out all the antennas, the commo bunker, one of the mortar pits, and I believe Steele was killed actually going to the commo bunker. And so the only thing left, they had to use the fire arrow that was in the middle of the camp for directing the air support that came. And then the next day is when I went there. In fact, Steele had already, and I believed everybody had been taken away the next day when I got there.
Was anybody else there that time, Bo?
No, I showed up after that, and Sergeant Gray was still around when I came into the camp at the end of April. There was another fellow that was wounded during that time, and his name was Sergeant Stanley.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Stanley
He
ended
was
up
evacuated.
down in the C team. And Jim Leslie and I, when we'd go back to the C team, we'd always check in on, see how Sergeant Stanley was doing. But he had a pretty horrendous neck wound from all of the action that was going on. Probably caught some shrapnel from the mortar rounds coming in. But I was not there during that initial exchange. I came in after those two gentlemen had been killed.
Ray? Haven't heard
No.
from you in a while.
Yeah, I'm just enjoying listening to these guys and that, bringing back memories,
Oh, yeah.
So it might be of interest to a couple of you on the phone that I guess the only person I've ever really stayed in contact with after I came back from Vietnam was Jim Leslie. He and I were pretty tight in Tong. And I told him this event was going on here today. He was in demolition on the team. He had been with the Marical. He shipped into Nha Trang, but then was assigned to the Marical. So he spent first part of his tour in Vietnam with the Marical up in I Corps, and then ended up at the C team. And he says he always claims he was sent out to Tong because it was the penal colony at the time. And if you were making trouble back at the C team, they shipped you out to Tong.
Yeah.
That's how he said he got there. But he and I remained tight. He lives up in Wrangell, Alaska, and says hello to everybody. He wasn't going to be able to make the meeting today. So I've got to give him a sit rep when this is over.
Yeah. Bo, when you went to CCN, did you run into a guy, John Ingalls?
I don't believe so. That name's not familiar.
Okay.
I left, I went back to Minnesota on a 30-day leave between my extension, came back in September, back to Tong just for a very short period of time, and then shipped up to Nha Trang, where I was hoping they'd send me to one of the Mike forces or whatever, and they had other ideas. They said, well, no, you're headed up to CCN. And I think I spent half the day in the NCO club just getting lit up and then going in and talking to the sergeant major in probably a pretty belligerent manner. And I just remember, he kind of said, you could spend the rest of your time here at the gate guard until it's time to go home, or you can go on up to CCN. I thought about that for a moment, and the gate guard didn't sound like a hell of a lot of fun. So I said, okay, when do I leave? And, I got up there and they put me in a Mike force because I didn't have enough time in to train me up and feel they were going to get their money's worth out of me running recon. But I lost a lot of good friends up there, and have a very sour taste in my mouth about the whole way that all ended up. Losing people, bait, sending them into Laos and these areas just as bait when they knew damn well there were battalions of NVA up there. So it was a tough time for me coming home. I struggled and finally found my footing, but I always remember fondly my times in the camps.
I'll tell you, the reputation that Tong was where you sent the bad boys was still going on. It started in 68. And what I mentioned earlier, Baranek was was Lieutenant Baranek was killed at the LZ. And that night, I ran the clinic out on the road, and I had a source out there. I'd picked up, I think it was Neller developed it, but anyway, I went in and they said that the Frenchman, there was a Frenchman who had a plantation there, who the colonel got along with very well. They were always going over there and eating and evening entertainment. And that this Frenchman was sitting on the back porch with two of his French lady, not French lady, Vietnamese lady friends, and watched them set up that motor tube. And he was there. They were waiting for the helicopter to land, and the guy observing for the helicopter was on the second floor of the house. So I reported that. The S2 reported that from another source, and the colonel said it couldn't be true. It was false information. And that night I had CQ, and I'm walking around and I get a call from a lieutenant who I think I identified from going over the list, but I'm not going to say his name. And he was a Mustanger. And he said, you got CQ tonight? And I said, yeah. He said, well, I got this for you. And he hands me a piece of paper. He says, now you file your HNI, but you be absolutely sure you don't fire those numbers. You don't fire those coordinates. He says, because that's the Frenchman's house. So I went and I fired the HNI, and somehow or other I got confused and read the wrong piece of paper. And we hit the Frenchman's house, did quite a bit of damage. The next day he came roaring in as soon as it was light in his white shorts and a filthy t-shirt, all black. And the colonel calls me in. He says, you were CQ last night? And I said, yes, sir. He said, did you know you hit this man's house? He was sitting in the corner. I said, well, no. I just fired the coordinates that were left there for me. He said, well, you're in big trouble. You'll spend the rest of your life in the Army paying for the damage you've done. And I said, well, sir, I do my best, but I never had any mortar training. He says, you never had any mortar training? I said, no. First time I ever fired one was when I got here. About 3, So they sent for my records. Thank God. I did a lot of time on 2-bit brag. I really, really liked the mortar, and I had a friend who would take me out to the range anytime we had free time. But anyway, about a week later, coming from Tonleshon's the medic. And he comes in and he lands, and I got a call to go get him. And I went up there, and here he'd got into it with the local shaman in the camp. And he'd physically taken him and thrown him out of the clinic. And another revolt. Everybody's pointing guns at everybody, and they want this medic's head. And so they flew a helicopter in, and he ran down the hill and jumped in and got out of there. And I took him and down to the B-33 cafeteria. We didn't call it mess, and got him something to eat. And then I said, I got to go pack. And he said, where are you going? I said, I know where I'm going. I'm on my way to Tonleshon. And sure enough, within an hour, I was airborne. So, yeah. And a couple of the other guys had stories too that were there.
Hey, where were you at when where was the French plantation at? Was that at Anlock or Loch Nen or where?
Yeah, Anlock.
Anlock.
It was, I'm trying to remember. It was, I know the direction I was shooting, but I can't remember all the whole layout of where everything was. But it seemed to me I was shooting west, and yeah, I was shooting northwest.
That was an 81 or a knee mortar? Probably an 81, right?
Yeah, it was an 81. You mean what we got hit with or what I shot?
Hey, let me tell you guys a story about how talented our medics are. You know, box trees. I used to pull sick call with Sergeant Morganfield, who Steve tells me passed away, but he was a great medic. You know, our medics were overtrained at Fort Bragg, and they had their own pharmacy, and we took morphine and albumin with us, and these guys could do anything. Well, one day I was pulling sick call with Sergeant Morganfield, and we had a line of dependents that, I don't know, standing in line to get on sick call. And we would treat them and give them a sugar pill, slap them on the butt and say, next. And then one gal showed up who was sassy, good looking gal. And Morganfield looked at me and said, well, I think she's the camp prostitute. Turned out she had gonorrhea. So Morganfield gives her a shot of penicillin in the butt. She went into an anaphylactic reaction. We picked her up and put her on the gurney and held her down while she was swapping. He gave her a shot of Benadryl and epinephrine in the heart, waited about 15 seconds for her to recover, stood her up, gave her a sugar pill, slapped her in the butt, and said, next. That's what we call sick call. I thought you guys would enjoy that, right?
I'll put in a plug now for the Green Beret magazines, if you haven't seen them. But you remember the monthly magazines that were in Vietnam? I collected a whole set of 52 and printed them in 5 volumes. There's one particular story here.
Yeah, I remember that well.
The Tong Shan turkey shoot. Bob?
Yeah, what I did is I got my daughter, who was, I think, about in 3rd grade, to ask for donations of clothing for young children. We had it sent over to them. And when we used that as prizes to the chaps that win the matches, but the marksmanship capability of those people was pretty minimal. So we did our best to try to upgrade it, but I question really how much success we had. And of course, the picture there is of Bernard, who got the attention of the contestants with his ability with a 45, but it turned out well, and how much it actually improved marksmanship is questionable.
Go ahead.
We're not hearing from Bernard.
Bob,
Hey, I'm here.
you were in the picture.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was a pretty good shot with a 45. This is an unbelievable story, but it's true. And I know you've got your steel pots on. The day they took that picture, it was high noon and there was no wind. And there was a fish pond probably 80 yards outside the camp. And I'm standing up on the berm with a 45. And I said, I can hit that engineer picket probably twice out of every 7 rounds. And they said, you can't hit that engineer picket with a 45 at that range. I said, yes, I can. And I proved to them that I could. The 3rd round out of the pistol, there's seven rounds in the magazine. The 3rd round hit the engineer picket, and you could hear it go clank. And then about the 6th or 7th round, I hit it a 2nd time. And I could do that pretty regularly. Now, the engineer picket was being mirrored by the pond. So it was a straight up and down. It's only engineer picket, as you know, is only 3 inches wide, something like that. And to hit that with a 45 at 80 meters, or about that, is a pretty remarkable shot.
Incredible.
Wow.
Bob Brown, are you there?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay. Well, I think the colonel can verify that story.
I can. I certainly can.
Bob, you had come in under unusual circumstances. You had been, what, First Infantry Division? How did you manage that to end up with Tongleshan?
How did you manage to end up in Tongleshan?
Well, you know, this goes back a ways. I was, you know, I got kicked out of Special Forces once, and that's a long story I won't go into now. But when I got over with the First Division, I ran into an old acquaintance of mine by the name of John Paul Van, and John was gracious enough to write a letter to Colonel Aaron, and he got me an in-country transfer back into Special Forces. Of course, the people back in the Pentagon that kicked me out didn't know that, which was just as well. So I got assigned to B-33, and I got up to Colonel Lanner, who was an outstanding officer, and he put me in as initially S1, I suppose, because of my writing and publishing background, etc. And after a short period of time, I simply told him I didn't come to push papers. I wanted an A-team, and with all due respect, if I can't get it, I might as well go back to the First Division. And so he gave me Tongleshan, and that's how I ended up there. One of the more fascinating, well, probably the most fascinating experience of my life, and most rewarding and most challenging. Not that I was the best, I certainly wasn't, but as I said, it did challenge those abilities that I did have to the utmost.
What did you know about
you did.
Tongleshan before you got there?
What did you know about it before you got there?
Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. I just was sent down there with basically no briefing, as I recollect. But of course, my memory leaves a lot to be desired. But to the best of my recollection, I wasn't really given much of a briefing as to just, I was simply sent down there and with a job to do.
Do you recall the name of the LLDB commander?
Do you recall the day of the LLDD commander?
Oh, the LLDB.
Captain Long.
The one in Tongleshan?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
LOMG.
Who I'm convinced was in bed with the VC. I don't know whether Bernard got into when I got hit and how I got hit, but I didn't get along with that son of a bitch very much at all. And the what should I say, hostility between the two of us was accentuated when I broke his rice bowl and wouldn't let him bring into his co-op bowl food to sell to the CIDG at outrageous prices. So as I said, I was convinced what happened was we just didn't get along. And I was convinced that he was working for the VC. And then of course on the 9th of May, we started taking incoming after I had gone down. Well, let me go back a little bit. What happened was in the morning, mid-morning, it was beginning of rainy season, 9th of May. It was foggy, cloudy, and we'd been taking a lot of mortar rounds down on the airstrip. And Dai Wee Long was down there with his bunch of thugs at the end of our airstrip. And they were, I got a phone call, a radio. He called me up and said he wanted me to come down to the end of the airstrip where they were. And because they'd located a couple of 107 rockets that were set up to shoot right down the airstrip. So I went down there, and then he asked me to go up and get a camera to take a picture, and trying to maintain some type of reasonable relationship. I said, okay. Well, I drove back up into camp, and I was in camp about 30 seconds, and the first round comes inside the perimeter of the camp. I mean, it was, they obviously had the mortars and rockets registered quite well. And subsequently, I got hit. I was evacuated out that night, and the next morning, I had a couple of Sonny Elrod, and I forget who the other chap, I had them in the train with bartering for some food, and they came to see me in the hospital. And I had been in surgery at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they came in about 8 o'clock, and I was functioning. So I told them I wanted a uniform and boots, and they got it for me, and I put it on. I said, take me down to see Colonel Campbell. I was fucking pissed because I was convinced that this son of a bitch had purposely tried to kill me. And that does cause a bit of hostility in one's mind. So I went in, and of course I had sutures all over my face, and I must have been a hell of a wreck. And I went in and simply laid on Campbell that you know, I was convinced, maybe it wasn't Campbell, it may have been Lerner, or whoever was the B team commander. I was convinced that Dai Wee Long was a fucking VC. And I went to Cameron. They wanted to ship me out to Japan. I said, no, I don't want to go to Japan. So they put me in Cameron Bay for a period of time. And when I went back to camp, why Dai Wee Long was gone. And he never came back for as long as I was there. And I'm still convinced the son of a bitch was a VC. Boxy knows, Bernard knows a lot, basically the whole story.
Bob?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know where Captain Long went after that, but I know know that the colonel is telling the truth about Captain Long. I think he was probably an informant. I was up there one night talking to these guys, and my counterpart, the Special Forces medic, was named Twin, and Captain Long and Lieutenant, the XO from the Vietnamese side of the camp, we're all talking on the radio, and they were talking to the North Vietnamese. They picked up on the not the single sideband, but on our regular radio, they picked up some Vietnamese talking, and then the LLDB medic Twin started talking to them, and they were exchanging information. Now they're doing that in Vietnamese, and I can't understand a damn word they were saying, but I am aware that Captain Long and the medic Twin and the XO were all communicating with North Vietnamese who were out in the field.
I'm okay. Just give me some ice.
So gentlemen, I've got to drop off the call here, but it's been really good to sit and listen to everybody and get to see some of the faces here and know that you're all still hard charging there after all of these years. So one question for Steve is, I know you're recording these. Where are you going to make this information available? I'm not sure I
On
understand.
my website, specialforcesbooks.com. On the first page, you see a map of Vietnam. Above the map, it says Camp Oral Histories.
Okay.
So the I-Corps camps are all posted there. I post some of the camps as I get them up, but they're rough. I-Corps are all edited, and Bonnie Cooper's done a good job to edit them and display them well. The other ones are not edited, so I'm reluctant to put them up there because they're not as good as they could be. But they will get up there ultimately. She's got a lot of work to do. It's harder to edit the video than it is to hold the meeting.
No, I bet. Well, I truly appreciate all of your effort on this. This is, I read the article that you sent along that was posted here recently, and it's just got to be a monumental task. And I really appreciate all your help in reaching out and grabbing hold of us guys that are still around. So thank you very much.
I was very disappointed that the number we have here is less than a third of the people that I contacted. And many of those people really had indicated that they were excited to come here. They may have good reasons. They may have had medical appointments or other things, but I was disappointed that we didn't have more people. You guys did a really outstanding job of bringing the history together. And I'm really happy to have it all recorded here. But I really wish that more people had been here because we would just had more stories.
Well, Steve, I got something a little bit on the later side when I was at Tong Chon. Morale was pretty low there when I was there, and we had a water tower with a water ballot. It was like a swimming pool, you know what I'm saying? It had rubber with stiff board sides to keep it erect, and you fill it with water. That was on top of our water tower there. Well, after a particular mortar attack, I ordered another one of those, claiming that the one on the tower was leaking from shrapnel. And so when I got there, I erected it on the ground, filled it with water. Nobody knew what I was doing, but I got it filled with water. And after it was filled with water, I stripped down and jumped in. All of a sudden, 3 or 4 of the other guys was in there, and a couple of the gals that was in camp. And we had a fun time that day. So, I don't know if it's still there, was still there when you guys were there or not, but
I've
I
got a
definitely
picture.
remember that.
I've got a picture of that if I can find it.
that'd be great.
All right, so I'm going to drop off here, guys. Have good rest of the afternoon wherever you're at, and take care.
Yeah.
Take care, Bob.
Hi, Bob, nice to meet you.
Thank you, sir. God bless.
Don't forget about that specialforcesphotos.com. If you find that picture, put them up there, Tom.
Right, I'm gonna, yep, I got it written down. So anxious to get on that.
How do you label those, Steve?
Say again, Ralph, what did you say?
How do you label those pictures?
You just put them up and there's a caption facility with it. You'll say, you want to write a caption? You say yes.
Okay, very good.
And you can even put a file name on them too, whatever you want. So it's an interesting program. I haven't worked with it as much as I would like to, because I got so many other things to do.
A lot of things came back to me. I've been taking notes, and I'll write some of this up and send it to you.
Okay, well, the more stuff that you're able to put up, especially in the pictures and the photos thing, was very good, because I don't have to do that. Everything else I have to manually do by myself, and that's a little bit complicated.
Yeah, I'm anxious to get my slides all digitized before,
Right.
pass from this world, because I don't know what will happen to them
This
after
is
I'm
the
gone.
guy here. He's
Look,
running.
On slides,
But yeah,
if you send
That's-
your slides to Texas Tech Vietnam Center and you send them captions with the slides and donate the slides to the Vietnam Center, they will send you back a digital version. They'll send
Okay,
you
what's
back
that? Texas Tech?
ttu.edu/Vietnam.
TQU?
TTU, Texas Tech University
Okay.
.edu/Vietnam. And
All right.
call somebody there. They'll do it for free, and you'll put the slides.
Okay, that's great. Wonderful. You probably told me before, but I forgot.
Was there another question out there?
No, I'm gonna leave, guys. Glad to talk to you, and good luck to y'all. Talk to you again another time.
All right, next week are the 4 B-34 camps to do, and that's the end of 3 Corps.
Okay.
And I'm going to take a little bit of a break, and I'm going to go to 4 Corps.
You're gonna do Tinyon?
Tinyon we did before earlier.
Did you?
Tinyon
Okay.
was what 320 something.
323, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So as you talk to other people, especially people who are in 4 Corps, tell them when I call up, they should answer.
Yeah.
So the problem I have is, I've never heard of the Special Forces Nigerian Prince's scam. So I try to get the word Special Forces into the conversation when I call somebody up, but people are very reluctant to pick up the phone these days.
Oh, you know what? I'm that way.
it's true.
But we had something like 33 people in the emails, and they're all on the email you got from me. So you can contact them just by clicking on their individual emails, or you can send a bulk email out to everybody, because all the information's right there. The only person who might have a problem would be Bob Bernard, who's somewhat challenged on that in this field. Is that right, Bob?
Amen. That's absolutely right.
He's not the only one challenged.
Well, I wasn't born into the computer era, and the only thing I was ever taught how to do on a computer was medical records for Veterans Administration and for Oklahoma Department of Corrections. When they went computerized, I had to learn how to use a computer for the first time in my life. I actually learned how to type. I was already 68 years old, and now I'm 84, but I'm still hanging in there. God has been good to me. Yeah.
Bernard, it's Ralph. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
Who's there?
Ralph Smith.
Oh, Ralph Smith.
Yeah, I want to get
Hey,
hold.
Ralph.
Yeah.
Ralph, I would like to give you my address.
I'd like to
know, Bob Bernard. Yep.
Give me your phone number, Bob, because you probably have trouble with mail.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, do me a favor, Ralph. Write my home address down and send me a letter by Mail.
Use the telephone,
24
Bob.
2401 Southwest Edinburgh Drive, EDINBUROUGH
Too fast.
Drive.
Too fast, Bob.
Lot,
240 5 West.
24 Southwest Edinburgh, EDINBUROUGH, Edinburgh Drive. Lawton, Oklahoma.
How do you spell Lutton?
LAWTON.
Okay.
Lawton.
All right.
And 73505.
Okay. 73505.
Correct. And my phone number
Yeah.
is 580 649 0236.
Okay, what was the prefix again? First three numbers.
405.
Okay, 405. Very good.
Yeah, the area code 405.
Got it. 405
And
649
gosh,
236.
that's correct.
All right.
Good man. Ralph, nice talking to you. God bless. I'm
Good
very
talking to
pleased
you.
to have had the opportunity to talk to all of you guys and to hear the war stories, but I had to rush in and get my steel pot and put it on because you can't tell war stories without a steel pot.
Yeah.
And shower shoes.
Goodbye.
Oh yeah. Hey Ralph, do you remember getting a mortar attack and you just came out of the shower, had a towel wrapped around you, and you sat on the toilet and dropped a cigarette into the two-holer, and the other hole was filled with gasoline?
No, I don't remember that. I remember a mortar attack when my nurse burst into the shower room, and there I was. And she had my vest and she had my helmet. And Twee ran up to me with that. And she kept saying, income. And the stuff was rattling on the tin roof of the shower room. So I remember that. I don't remember setting off any latrines, but who knows? I could
Well,
have.
somebody, I thought it was you, Ralph, that
No.
was sitting on the two-holer, and they're supposed to put diesel fuel in there, but the people were using the diesel fuel for cooking, and they put MoGas in the burnout drums, and they had a two-holer.
I
So
remember that.
somebody
I
dropped
remember. Yeah, it burned down. I remember that, but I don't.
Yeah.
It wasn't me, but I'm the guy that was
Okay.
running across during the mortar attack. Was running across the camp with just a vest and a helmet. Period.
Yes, sir. Listen, I got to get off the phone, and it's been a pleasure. Gosh, I hope we can do this again someday soon.
That'd be great.
Find a 10-year-old to teach you how to get on the internet.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have to have my daughter do it, but we're here.
Stephen,
Steve,
Yes,
do you have an O'Neill for Tonlachon during the period I'm there? I couldn't find it on. I can't look now because I'm in here and I only got one computer. But
okay.
I do not remember an O'Neill.
we called him Oni. redheaded fella?
Not, yeah,
He
not
was
during
when I
my
got
era.
there, and he was there when I left. He was a good soldier.
Okay.
Okay.
There was an Edward O'Neill in 66. And he later was at 342 in 67. And he was at B-34, I think. He was 342 in 67. He was a medic and SFC. Is that who you were talking about?
No,
Okay.
he wasn't a medic. Of course, I don't know. They had John down as being at a different camp than he was at.
Well, what did he do?
I think he was weapons. I think he was like weapons. My stuff, I have more info. I'm getting ready to sell one of my houses, the last one I lived in, and I've got so much stuff in the storage. When it comes out, I'll pull it all. And if I still got a question, or if I can provide anything, I'll send it.
If I can get a name, I can pretty well find almost anybody. It's, you know, the good news and the bad news. The good news is I look for people over 75 years old. And so it limits the number of people I look for.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier. The big problem is that sometimes those people aren't there anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Stephen?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to sign off also, and terrific job that you're doing. Keep up the good work, man.
Well, I'm glad you came here.
Been a pleasure attending this seminar. It really has. You folks have a great day.
Martin,
You too.
Take care, Martin.
you take care.
You bet.
As I said, there are a lot of other people who didn't show up. Bill Pedigo is one of them. Gary Neller, you were talking about, he's another. You know, he should have showed up.
Yeah, Neller should have. I relieved him. We were in the same medical training group, and I relieved him at B-33.
You also were talking about a little story that I think I might relay to him at some point. It seemed he did something that was maybe a little semi-outrageous.
Oh, Neller?
Yeah. You said he started this thing up before you got there.
Oh, sorry, that's those ribs. I got 2 broken ribs right now. I don't recall.
Okay, well, when I go back through the video, I'll see it.
Yeah.
But you blamed him for something or other. Yeah, I want to tell him that he didn't show up, so he got talked about.
Himself.
Tell him he got talked about. All his secrets are out. Yeah, boy, this brings back memories when you do this.
Well, look, you got all those emails, 33 emails addresses on the mail I sent you.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. You know, Zoom will allow you to have a 40-minute session for free anytime you want. So I'm moving on to other camps, but you can talk to individuals, talk among yourselves, and you can go ahead and continue the discussions. You don't need me. You got the addresses. If you notice names that are missing, like O'Neill, perhaps, you know, I will try during this year to update everything I can on the website. It's a very manual job, but I'm not going to be doing it again. So this is my last pass at that website. I'll just fund the web host so he can keep it up there long after I'm gone. But I got some very nice emails from people. One of them recently from a young man who said he was reading his father's mail. His son was reading his grandfather's mail from Vietnam. And they Googled the father's name, the grandfather's name, and found his name on my website. And he thanked me for doing that, having that website. And he and his son really got into reading his father's letters because of the way it was portrayed on the website. So
Well, I think you're doing great work.
well, it's a lot of fun, and having this audience here, this group of people, great people that I'm very proud to have served with, and the preservation of the history in this way, to me, is very important because it's just not being saved that way. There are other aspects of history that are not being done right, but the personal experiences of people at a camp level are probably one of the least recorded stories of special forces. So you're doing it now.
I'm glad. I'm glad to see it's being done. I'll see what I can do.
Okay, take care.
You too.
I'm
All right.
alive and kicking.
Yep.
And, yeah, I was really surprised, when I got that call. I don't know how you got a hold of me. I know you got my wife's number, but that when I first got the information, I said, "What's this going on?" I thought maybe it was some kind of a scam or something. So I looked you up and did a little investigation. I said, "Oh yeah," but anyway,
I'm fairly well
it's
known.
good to see Longello.
Yes, good to see you.
It's good to see Tom. I wouldn't recognize him today. Tom
No,
Martin.
not at all.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see all of you.
Well,
And
listen, I'm gonna sign off, and it's good to see each and every one of you and hear what you had to say. And Steve, I may see you and Gordon in a couple weeks when my wife and I come through to Houston,
I look forward to it.
and we'll give you a call.
Very good.
All right, guys. Good to see you. Take care.
You too.
Steve, I'm gonna bow out now also. Look, I look forward to seeing you at the Special Forces Association convention in September.
That's another point that I should make. Everybody, the Special Forces Convention is in September in Colorado.
Yes, I think you've done an outstanding job, and you deserve an incredible amount of credit for the historical work you've done. And you're the only one that's really doing it to the extent that you have, and you certainly deserve a great deal of credit for that. And I admire you greatly. So,
well, there are a lot of other people, including yourself, that are keeping the history alive. You've got Tiltmeyer keeping SOG up, and you got a broad range of things you're doing. I hope that you talk to your friend, the Sergeant Major over there from the chapter, about the problem of being a vendor when you have a hospitality suite that's across town.
okay, friend, I'll see you in Colorado Springs.
Okay. Take care.
Good day, gentlemen.
Okay.
Okay.
bye,
Take
Bill.
care.
You too.
Take care.
All right, signing out. Take care.
Yeah, Irish Mike signing out.